welcome everybody to another edition of AATBirds Weekly Report. I myself, Johnny Huleka, is joined by Jeff Warner, and we have a special guest, Philadelphia Eagles beat writer for NJ.com and Lehigh Valley Live, Chris Franklin. Chris, thanks for joining us to talk some birds tonight.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. Who can believe that? Training camp's almost this close. It's craziness.
Just about under 2 weeks away. So
Yeah.
Eagles football's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, especially with the way the other sports are going on at the other teams. I think people are chomping at the bit to get the Eagles back in the mainstream media.
Yeah, especially since Johnny Gaudreau's looking to go elsewhere. Yeah, it's not a good time to be if you're following the Flyers. Not a good time there. So maybe the Eagles can provide that light to everybody right now because everything's going on.
Yeah, I think Phil Flyers fans have given up. So, come over and just listen to all Eagle stuff because the Flyers aren't going anywhere.
Just take a punch.
So, what I want to start off with, I want to get your thoughts on the Eagles offseason. What they've done, their additions, how Howie Roseman has kind of reworked this team and kind of put them into the contention where we really didn't think that was possible after last year losing in the wild card game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's rebuilt this team. What are your thoughts, with that?
I thought that Howie Roseman made some real decent moves. I think when you look at some of the things, when it goes to draft day alone, when you got Jordan Davis, when you got A.J. Brown, and then you made some of the other moves such as Cam Jurgens to address them in the future, as well as getting the Kobe Dean too, to be your potential second level leader for years to come. And then you look at something like bringing Hassan Reddick in, bringing back. I know it's self-included when you look at a guy like Derek Barnett, but having a guy like that on your second unit, not having to rely on him, gives you some edges as well too. And some of the ancillary moves are made. Overall, I think this team does. Basically, Roseman got his team being a legitimate contender for the NFC East division crown, and then who knows, maybe they win a playoff game this year.
Yeah, and I would say it's definitely a team that we are building a buzz around. Look, I would say the last couple of seasons, I would say the fan base is a little bit down on this team just because you'll know the uncertainty with the quarterback position, which we're sort of going into this coming season. And of course, I'm sure you've been hearing the reports and the rumblings about Jalen Hurts' inconsistency in the mini camps or this offseason or in practices and things like that. I don't want you to, whether you believe them or I just want to know, what have you seen from Jalen Hurts? I'll say, is the rumblings and the concerns justified, or you feel it maybe just being overblown? I want to know what you have seen from Jalen Hurts and to try to maybe ease the fan base a little bit in the uncertainty of his performance so far.
You see, it seems like I picked the perfect time to take a 2-week vacation because all that stuff blew up when it comes out of there. And when you look at overall Jalen Hurts, when it comes to something like him having a bad day like that, with the 3 sacks and the 3 picks like that for it, yeah, you can see that happening. You can see that happening. I think Aaron Rodgers, I think that first day he came back from minicamp, he also had a bad day. I think he threw a pick on his first throw. You'll see a lot of quarterbacks, especially early on when they're trying to get reacclimated to a little bit of practice speed and everything else. I think you'll see that. From what I've seen now, when it comes to Jalen specifically, what I've seen from last year to where he's at right now, I see a more compact delivery. And I think that's what he needs as well, too, especially I think he has a decent arm. He doesn't have a Josh Allen arm, but he has a decent enough arm to move the offense down the field. And when you don't have that type of Josh Allen arm, a lot of it comes to reading the defense and anticipation and getting the ball out quickly. And his throwing motion is a lot more compact than what it was last year, and especially his rookie year. He's getting the ball out a lot quicker. He's getting it at the top, his hand at the top of the release. And I like that about him. And his footwork's a lot better, too, because, sometimes when you see a lot of these younger quarterbacks, they're not even setting their foot right in the ground, and they're trying to throw, or they don't get set, and then their footwork's bad. They don't get enough power behind the ball, and then next thing you know, you see it going back the other way. I think Hurts is starting to work on a little bit as well, too. I think he's got a little more touch with that deep ball. So I still remember the Deion Kane of all people. Deion Kane and John Hightower, he has some good passes there. So overall, I think he's improved in that aspect. I think the biggest thing I want to see is, can he read these defenses quickly? Because teams will probably play more zone and throw this guy's a lot more, knowing that he's a running threat and knowing that you have these safeties back there that have to stay back there to cover these wide Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, Quez, and Dallas. So if he can decipher, if I want to see how he reads those defenses and he clicks, because if it does, I think this offense can move forward.
Totally agree. I just want to follow up to a little bit of Jalen Hurts because look, all we've been hearing all offseason is that this upcoming year could be a year that a make or break year for Jalen Hurts for his future here in the city of Philadelphia. And look, he has no excuses now. Look, this might be the best offensive line this team has assembled in quite some time. They get him AJ Brown alongside Devontae Smith last year. What do you realistically need to see from Jalen Hurts this upcoming season? Granted, I understand it's early. We haven't even got through training camp, but that's what the talk's going to be this upcoming season. Is Jalen Hurts the future quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, especially since they've been linked to some of these veteran quarterbacks this offseason, and there's rumors that there's people in the organization that are not fully in on Jalen Hurts. So we need to know what you feel realistically we need to see from Jalen Hurts for him to come back as the full-time starter, or for the fan base and the organization the believe in him as that he can be the franchise quarterback.
I think you need to see some tangible stats that will be able to show that for long to say, hey, you know what, this guy can be a top 10 quarterback, top even 12 quarterback in this league. Personally, for me, and I know it's way early, but looking at a stat line of like, say, 4,600 yards passing, maybe about 800 yards rushing, I think that's a very good season given what you have on this roster. Because I don't want to see him have as many rushing yards as he did, because he's going to expose himself more to being hit. And the last thing you want to do is, I know you got Gardner Minshew, but the last thing you want to do is have your starting quarterback out for a substantial time because he took his hits, even though it's part of his game. And B, I think you will see a lot more passing. Granted, maybe the old West Coast style of three-step drop out, 5, maybe you take your deep shot here and there. But overall, I think when you look at, if he can get you 4,600 passing yards, 800 rushing yards maximum, I think that puts him in a position for the team to really legitimately go to his agents and go, hey, you know what? Even if it's a 2 or 3 year extension, 4 year extension, we want to make you the face of the franchise, because everybody talks about his intangibles. And if he shows a tangible increase that way, I think that's when you start to see it. So if he gets those stats, I think he's around here for another 2-3 years.
I'm hoping you're right, because look, I just don't want to continue. This organization has a habit of trying to justify their decision making. They've been trying to justify the decision making of drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round. You saw the turmoil it caused with Carson Wentz, and I just don't want them to. I don't want him to play good. We want a great quarterback. The NFL, the way it is now, as you know, we want success within 2 to 3 seasons. We don't want to wait 4 or 5 years of rebuild. And the way this team is assembled right now, they have a chance to possibly within the next couple of years to make a deep playoff contention. And it all comes down to the quarterback play in Jalen Hurts. So I totally agree with you, Johnny.
Yeah, no, I think the one thing that you're trying to say is you want to be able to win because of the quarterback, not in spite of the quarterback. And I think that's a big thing, especially when you're giving a contract, when you're looking at the type of money that they're talking about. You could see him getting like a deal, and like a guy like Derek Carr, he got a big extension, but it's basically factored around a year. It's just like they could do something along the lines of that. They surrounded him with weapons. Unfortunately, I don't really think they did that good of a job giving weapons to Carson Wentz. Chris, I think you could agree with me. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I feel like they kind of righted their wrong with getting AJ Brown, drafting Devontae Smith, being able to, give the extension to Dallas Goedert, letting Zach Ertz go, letting Goddard be the number 1 guy. What do you think about that in terms of the weaponry that they have now than what they had put with the other quarterback?
I think overall, when you look at, I think it's about, I think to me, that's similar. I think first 2 years Alshon you got were good enough to warrant the contract that he got, and I think they were banking a lot on their draft picks, and those 2 consecutive years, 2019 with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and 2020 with Jalen Hurts, that's what did them in. I think it went more to draft. I think they were trying to attempt to build weapons around Carson. They just missed on both of those picks when it came to there. overall, I think this team's a little bit more explosive. I think one of the best things I think that happened to the Eagles, and when it came to their scouting staff, and when it came to Howie Roseman overall, that was to see the success the Kansas City Chiefs had with what it took to win. Because you see a lot. It seems like when the Chiefs brought these speedy receivers and what they were doing with Tyreek Hill, what they were still doing with Travis Kelce, there was a lot of similarities when you look at the type of offensive routes and everything else that the Eagles were trying to do. There's a lot of similarities that were there. So I think when you look at it now, I think the Eagles have what it takes weapon-wise. You got an option to pick up yards after the catch. You have another option that can go occupy the middle and Goddard. You have 2-3 receivers. I think people are sleeping on Quez Watkins. I think I was talking to somebody in the league, and one thing they said they really were hoping they didn't see a lot where you saw Quez Watkins line up in the slot going against safeties because they were a little worried about that, and the Eagles didn't do it as much as they used to. Now that you have A.J. Brown, now that you have Devonta Smith, they can play on the outside. You can move them on the inside there, and you still have to put the pressure of, okay, do you double cover Goddard still? Do you what you do? And then you have Quez. So I think there's a lot of options and a lot of ways you can attack a defense now with what they have now compared to probably say about the 2019, 20 to 20 range when it comes to that.
And, kind of going off of, we talked a little bit about training camp coming up in about 2 weeks here. What do you have in terms of a player you're looking to watch? It doesn't have to be a star. It could be, somebody. You want to do one guy you're looking forward to that's a little bit bigger name, and then one kind of sleeper that you think people should keep their eye on when it comes to training camp into the preseason.
I think the one I really am keying on is Jordan Davis. And the reason why I say that is I think it could be a true domino effect on how the rest of that defense, not only just the rest of the defensive line, but how the back seven plays. Because if you get a guy with his size, a guy with his quickness that plays in the middle next to Hargrave, Cox, what have you, whatever alignment formation you use, if you use odd man for the young odd mans or the under fronts, whatever if you have to concentrate 2, sometimes 3 offensive linemen in the middle, that affects your pass rush. And then you get the pass rush, we all know you can get the opportunity for more turnovers. So that's one guy I really think that he can really excel in this type of scheme. And that's why I'm really curious to see that. As it goes for sleeper, I'd probably see part of me wants to go to Epps because I think he does get I think he's okay for what he was, like as a third safety. But I think that the more snaps that he gets, I'm curious. I think he could be a guy that the more opportunities he gets, he could be an average. I'm not going to say he's a Pro Bowl guy, but I think he's a guy that could be an adequate starter if given the chance. And he doesn't, if he plays as steady as he did when those times when he came in as a starter replacing Anthony Harris or Ryan McLeod. So that's one guy I think who I'm really think could be a sleeper on his team.
And I'll say I'm glad you brought up Jordan Davis because I want to get your thoughts on this what happened this past minicamp. Look, Eagles fans, they're excited for Jordan Davis. I'll say when the pick was selected, everyone was up in arms because, look, he's going to be the future anchor, like you brought up, of that defensive line. One guy that might not have been so happy about it was Fletcher Cox. And the fact that you have a leader on that defense and a veteran in that locker room, granted, I understand the OTAs were voluntary, but the fact that he waited to the last day or the last day to show up for mini camps and the OTAs, don't you think that I don't know should leave a sour taste in like fans' mouth or for the coaches that you have this veteran that had success for this organization and is supposed to be a leader in that locker room and a guy that you possibly want to groom the future with Jordan Davis, and he sort of blew it off a little bit? Or like, I just want your thoughts on the whole Fletcher Cox of not coming to practice or whatever it may be.
I think especially it was voluntary. I don't look too much into that. I think I talking to some people as well. I think he knows. I think a couple of those guys know that going into this season, quite possibly could be their last ones with the team. Yeah. So I think he knows the situation. I won't put too much. I think there's a couple of guys that weren't at practice as well too that wasn't as much that were on the field that we saw. And granted, we only had 2 open practices where we were allowed to see in person. But there's a couple other guys that weren't there too. So and they were veterans who've been here for a long time too. So I don't put too much into that. I think I'm worried more that if he were sort of to be standoffish or not helping them or wanted to shut them off, so they, you know what, hey, how you doing? And you finally are. And from what I've heard, he hasn't been that so far and early on. So I think he's been quote unquote, even though I think he's quote unquote been acting like the veteran and the captain in that room so far. So
That's
I,
good.
I don't think I'm putting too much into it as yet. But if it wound up being training camp and then all of a sudden you see, wait, where's Fletcher? Well, you just blew him off. Okay, then I think you start to go, oh, what we got here? But I don't foresee that happening right as of
I,
this moment.
I hope you're right, and I totally agree with you. And just as a fan, the fact that they let him go, bring him back for that type of contract, and for him not to show up, and it just seemed like too much of a coincidence. The fact that they drafted someone at his position as high as they did, knowing that, like you said, he's probably gonna be on his way out within the next year or two. It says it was just a little of a speculation, a little worrisome to maybe some fans. But another thing that might be a little bit worrisome, at least last year, was the defensive side of the football, and Jonathan Gannon, the fact that he got the criticism that he did, because he didn't have the players in place for this defensive scheme to run. But this upcoming season, he doesn't have an excuse. They get Jordan Davis. They signed Kaiser White. They added other pieces to this defense, Hassan Reddick. So what was that?
James Bradbury, second corner.
James Bradbury. So I'll say, do you feel that maybe this upcoming season is a hot seat year for Jonathan Gannon? The fact that if he doesn't succeed with this defense, with the players that he has at his disposal now, that he might be on his way out. I would say, or what type of expectations do you think that we're going to see from Jonathan Gannon this upcoming year? The fact that now he has the pieces in place to be successful.
Personally, I think it's Jonathan Gannon last year in Philadelphia, no matter what. Because
you think he's going to get a coaching job?
I think he's going to, especially if this defense does well with all these pieces here. I think because Final Three in Houston, somebody's going to be desperate for a head coaching job, and there's trends like defensive coordinators, young defensive coordinators are starting to come up a little bit. You hear their names a little bit more. I could see him taking a job next year, and then you have all these pieces, and the defense it falls back, and and everybody talks, oh, statistically they're 10th. Well, it didn't look at it at times. It didn't look like that at times. So I think if you see the defense still giving up a lot of passing yards, a lot of high completions percentage, it finishes next to last in sacks, and I think he's going that way, and they look another route for the defensive coordinator. But I think this year he has a few more pieces in place for stuff that he wants to do. I wonder, because especially when it comes to even disguising coverage. I mean, even though we knew Alex Singleton, he had a knack for basically racking up the tackles, and I still think it was a little rough, when it comes to his overall coverage in some aspects of that. I mean, we saw the problems they had with Eric Wilson. We were watching what is he doing back there? Why don't you just make the switch to TJ Edwards, and then finally it happened. So I think it's one of those things where I think Gannon has the pieces he has up front to create pressure, where even if he brings 5, you still have the guys on the back end that can hold their own. And then if he just brings 4 and he gets pressure that way, you have the talent and the second and third levels now to go ahead and try to get more turnovers, more pass deflections, and they can get off the field quicker to give the offense more chance to put some points on the board.
Now, what type of scheme do you feel that Gannon is going to be running this year? The fact that, look, they get Hassan Reddick, who's been known as a 3-4 pass rusher, and they get some other pieces there that might fit more the 3-4 scheme. Do you feel he's going to be more transitioning the defense to that style of defense, or is it going to be like a hybrid defense? What do you see him thinking that he's going to be running this year?
I think it's definitely going to be multiple. I think you'll see a lot. I'd probably look back to that first Atlanta game that they had, the season opener last year. I think that's the type of defense he wanted to run. Because you saw him start out, they're running that under looks. You saw Brandon Graham stand up, was like, oh, they're playing 3-4. Oh, okay, never mind. But then you started seeing they mix it. But then you saw the next series, they went to a 4-3. They started back and forth. I think you'll see a lot more of a mixture with what's going on. And then we heard Jordan Davis when he was talking earlier, we heard him talking about saying this playbook's a little familiar. And then may have seen Georgia's playbook from last year, and you see some of the fronts, you look and they play a lot of multiple too. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, depending on the matchup, if a team has a propensity to run the ball more, we may see more 3-4. If you see a team that struggles with their offensive line, you may see more 4-3. I think it'll depend on the opponent, but also I think you'll see a lot more. I wouldn't be surprised if you see 5-1. Given that Reddick said you want to run that sometimes. And looking at which is okay. Where do we block it? Where do we do this? And given that now you actually have a linebacker, you can either use CJ Edwards, I think was improved in coverage a bit better, or if you put Dean on there who can play well in coverage, you can use more 5-1 that way too.
which I'm happy. I want to see a mix of styles from this defensive scheme, especially last year. Like you said, that Gannon didn't have the personnel to run the defense that he wanted to run per se, and you just saw him stand back in coverage because he didn't want to put his secondary in a position to give up a big play. He wasn't bringing pressures as much as we've known him to do in the past. So I like the fact that he finally got the pieces in place, and that we're going to not be that vanilla style defense where basically we're going to be too predictable, where opposing offenses are just be able to pick us apart. You saw in that playoff game, Tom Brady just picked us apart. They were going up and down the field on that defense because we were being too predictable and we weren't able to bring pressure with what we had. So I'm glad. I hope you're right when it comes to the defensive scheme.
And I think one thing that was a big factor last year, losing Brandon Graham in the second game was huge, just because of what he brought to the defense. I think that was a big thing because Gannon then had to kind of rethink everything. And like Chris said, look at the first game, what they did defensively, the scheme-wise, what they were able to do. I know Atlanta wasn't a very good team, but still, they're able to mix and able to do so many different things that as the season progressed, they just weren't able to do. Yeah, it was nice seeing guys like Davion Taylor start to show a little bit of something. Unfortunately, he would get hurt. But again, it bodes to looking this year. You got a lot of depth now, it looks like, in certain positions that you just didn't have. You just were not strong. Last year's roster just was not very good. And for them to make the playoffs with what they had was pretty remarkable. But now you add all these pieces, and I feel Chris is absolutely right in this. This is going to be Jonathan Gannon's last year, and he's given all of the tools to be able to run a defense that fits him, basically.
Yeah, I thought it was very telling too, especially because we all saw how this defense started out, and it was Justin Herbert or whoever was just treading through them. I thought it is very telling that a lot of these guys stuck together. They all of them spoke, even personally, privately, what have you. They all spoke very highly again, no matter what, and they thought that he listened. They actually generally felt that he actually listened to their concerns. I mean, after that Raiders game, when we heard Fletcher Cox going off about like, "Hey, I'm used to rushing the passer, I'm used to doing this one," and next thing you know, you see him doing a little bit more of that as well too. And he listened to some of the players and started making tweaks to what they felt like they were so concerned. He still kept his overall philosophy in place because we hear this team, they really believe in explosive plays and either offensively, defensively, not giving up that big play. So he's still keeping his core philosophy around as much as he could, but still trying to tweak it to at least get through this last season. Now I think he has everything to do what he truly wants to do overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I said, awesome info. They said, Chris Franklin from NJ.com and Lehigh Valley Live. Thank you again for coming on with us tonight. Talk a little bit about the Eagles. Where can people find you? Just shoot, what you're doing, what you're got planned. Just let them hear it.
Sure, yeah. If you're going to go NJ.com/Eagles, Lehigh Valley Live /Philadelphia Eagles. Like follow me on Twitter at CFranklin News. Same with Instagram as well too. I'll be back coming on Monday. I'll start to be back following regular time, getting prepared. And I work with Les Bowen, and I'm sure you guys heard of him, back with the former Enquirer guy, and now he's get to work together this way too. So I lucked out this way. So looking forward to the season. It's going to be interesting. Say at least all the storylines are popping. That's going to be popping up. It's going to be a fun season.
Again,
absolutely. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for joining us, and hope to have you on future show later down the year.
All right, cool. Sounds great. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Chris Franklin, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of good insight there. I'll say, look, Chris, I'll say he's not he's one of the up-and-coming beat reporters that I'll say a lot of Eagles fans haven't heard of yet. But look, you have to check out his work. Again, make sure you're following him on Twitter. C Franklin News. Again, C Franklin News on Twitter. I'll say he has a lot of great content, a lot of great info, and a lot of great insight. He's covering the Eagles day to day, again, for NJ.com and Lehigh Valley Live. So make sure to check him out, give him a follow, tell him you watch the show, and we appreciate this insight.
I'm just going to shoot a shout out. How you doing, Adam? Just everyone commenting in.
Adam, Peanut, Chris, Henry, thanks for everyone for joining in, Eddie. So, look, I'm excited. Look, we're 2 weeks away from the Eagles season, and I understand right now the microscope is going to completely be on Jalen Hurts until it is decided, until he gets a contract, he's traded, released, whatever. all we're going to be eyeing and talking about is Jalen Hurts, and we want to see what he can do because, look, last year was not, I wouldn't say a disappointing year because they still made the playoffs as the 7th seed. They got spanked in the playoffs against the defending Super Bowl champion. So that team last year wasn't built, but this year there's no excuses. And the fact that I agree with Chris that we're hearing the rumblings from D Gunn reporting about Jalen Hurts from sources that he heard that were at practice, whether they're true or not. And look, D Gunn's a guy. He's not a guy to just throw something at a dartboard and hope it sticks. He is a guy that is very reputable. He's a guy that the players respect, the players trust. So anytime he reports something on his show or on Twitter or whatever, I feel it's legitimate. I feel legitimately someone told him that, whether it was someone that maybe went overblowing it. But again, remember the quote. He said someone asked him he asked someone in late May. The Eagles only had 1 or 2 practices at the end of May or beginning of June. So the fact that, he might have had one bad OTA, and like what Chris said, Aaron Rodgers has bad OTAs, veterans have bad OTAs. That's what practice is for. Practice is meant to get out the kinks. And look, these are guys that haven't played football since January. Yeah, they're probably working out, but like legitimate, like 7-on-7. And granted, there's no offensive line, and the whole sack thing. Like, how can you have sacks with 7 people on the field? I'm sure there's an internal clock from a coach is that they blow dead. As a quarterback, that the coach is trying to teach Jalen Hurts to get the ball quickly to his reads, to his players. So obviously that's probably the scenario, but people are just buying way too much of it and blowing stuff way out of proportion when it comes to the whole Jalen Hurts being inconsistent. I will worry about Jalen Hurts being inconsistent or being a bad quarterback when it comes to September 11th, week 1 against the Detroit Lions, and if we get shellacked 45-0 and the offense can't move the football.
Well, that would be a big time problem. But the way I see it here is, don't you think Gunner kind of knows him saying that is going to spark a lot of conversation?
The thing is, he said this before. He said this a couple of months ago on his show, and no one gave 2 craps about it. It's just the fact that this time it was worded differently, and the fact that everyone's buying into the stats that he was 0 for 10 in 10 plays with 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, and or 4 incompletions, whatever the hell it may be. And remember, like Chris said, plenty of other players were out. I'm pretty sure Quez Watkins wasn't there for one of those practices. We didn't have A.J. Brown yet, and then good. Look, A.J. Brown, I give him credit. He was a guy that had his quarterback's back. But he wasn't there. He doesn't know what happened in that practice. We didn't trade for him, or he didn't report to June until June 1st or whatever it was.
There were OTAs where him and Smith weren't present. He was working with Hightower and Deion Kane, and Jalen Reagor wasn't there. I know he had a couple things that he wasn't there for, but it's just training camp's 2 weeks away. So you have training camp, you have the scrimmages with other teams that they're going to be doing as well. I'm hoping, my one thing is, I know preseason doesn't really matter, but last year I feel like they barely played anybody in preseason. My thoughts on, are they going to play some of these guys a little bit more? To me, I know Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback. I feel if you play him in a preseason game a little bit more than the handful of plays that they did, maybe a little bit beneficial, especially if he's working with a new throwing motion, as Chris mentioned about it's more tighter, it looks more compact, it's not as elongated as I guess last year, which was evident. You'd think he'd want to work that into basically doing some of the, not saying play every preseason game, but maybe play a little bit more than they played last year. All the starters, not just him.
Look, they need reps. This is for the most part, a revamped football team. You need Jalen Hurts to get that chemistry with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith. We need him. We need this offense at full go. We need to see what we can do with this offense fully healthy. Look, that type of play, it builds confidence, it builds tempo, it builds momentum for an offense, even if it's only a couple of series. And look, Jalen Hurts, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, and I understand Chris's point about when I asked him about what his realistic expectations for Jalen Hurts to come back as the full-time starter or as the franchise quarterback. I understand stats, but I want to see him progress as a quarterback, not a football player. A quarterback. I want him to be able to show his arm strength. I want him to be able to show his accuracy. I want him to show his ability to read defenses, something he struggled with a lot last year. I want him going through his progressions. Too many times last year, as you saw in that game tape and what he was doing, he was eyeing Devontae Smith way too much. And that's what opposing defenses were doing. They were locking down Devontae Smith, which is going to be a lot more difficult this upcoming year. The fact that they have A.J. Brown, I feel a lot of teams are going to be focusing and game planning to try to shut down A.J. Brown because he brings you that explosive speed and playmaking ability that it is going to open things up for Devontae Smith and for and Dallas Goedert, who was a little bit of a disappointment last year. But I feel this offense now is more built to be more explosive, and I agree with Chris that we're going to see a lot more of a passing attack this season, and it's going to open things up in the run game because last year the fact that we ran like 70% of the plays or whatever it was. I understand Philadelphia, we always want a balanced offensive attack or a run-first offense. Yeah, it might be great, but you have to keep opposing defenses on edge. You can't be too predictable, and you have to have that mix of the play action and the run and pass game to open things up, especially with the amount of speed that they have at their disposal.
Yeah, and to me, I think a player that I'm really looking forward to is Kenneth Gainwell. They talked about how he was in the pass game, looking at all those weapons that they have. You have Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, like Chris mentioned, in the slot, being able to open up. I could even see them put Quez Watkins on the outside and move a player like Devontae or A.J. Brown into the slot.
I feel you're going to see a lot of Pascal in the slot. They did not bring a veteran slot receiver in here for nothing, especially with Sirianni, with his history of knowing him from Indianapolis. That I feel we're going to see a little bit of Pascal in there as well.
And, hey, I'm totally fine with that. It just gives you the dimensions, and hopefully Miles Sanders can stay healthy. He's in a contract year. Not saying the Eagles are going to be able to give him a contract, but he's in a contract year to show what he can do. So does that help the Eagles being able to show other teams what he can do? But I think Kenneth Gainwell, what he was able to do last year, in the pass game, he was even able to run the ball pretty well. And of course, you still have Boston Scott, who they signed as well. Kind of that change of pace type of back. They just don't have that big back like they had last year when Jordan Howard came up and everything. So
let's not bring his name up anymore. Jordan Howard is dead as a Philadelphia Eagle. Look, thank you for your service, Jordan Howard, as a Philadelphia Eagle, but I swear to God, if Howie brings him back, just have a power back, I am going to be livid. But look, I agree with you. We still need to know what we have in the running back at the running back position because Miles Sanders, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Last year, he had 0 touchdowns. Granted, when he was given the ball, he did get some decent yards. He led the NFL, or he was top 5 in the NFL, yards per carry or something.
5 yards per carry, I believe. So
yeah, something along those lines. So he can be productive when healthy, but the Eagles are typically a team that does not give big contracts the running backs. So look, I don't know what's in the cards for Miles Sanders if they decide if they're going to lowball him or trade him at the trade deadline but I hope that's not the case because, look, Miles Sanders, as injured as he has been, he can still be a dynamic player for your offense. And a guy that out of Penn State, he hasn't shown it too much in the NFL. He's been a guy that's been dropping the ball, but he brings you that dynamic out of the backfield where you can do a lot of split back sets with him and Gainwell, two guys that can catch the ball out of the backfield and catch ball in open space and get yards after the catch, to move the chains or break one free for a touchdown. So I'd rather them keep as many weapons as possible and let him go in the offseason if they have to, and then try to find a running back in the draft or free agency, whoever it may be. You get the compensation pick if you don't find anyone, but look, we need all the weapons that we can, and we need to know what we have behind him with Gainwell, and you already sort of know what you have with Boston Scott.
See, my feeling with that is, if Jalen Hurts shows you progression and plays a lot better, and you have to give him an extension, I really don't feel the Eagles are going to put a lot of dollars into the running back position. They're not going to give a big contract extension to a running back.
They'll go to the draft.
They'll go to the draft because next year the draft has a handful of very quality backs. Plus, you still have Kenneth Gainwell, who's young. Just for me, I just don't see it unless you can get him on a bargain deal. I don't see it, unfortunately. Or you'll see him maybe sign a veteran for cheap. So I don't see them investing a lot of money in that position.
And I agree with you. Like I said, they're typically a team that do not give running backs a big contract for their second contract out of their rookie deal. And look, like you said, there's a lot of talent out in the draft. There's probably going to be talent in free agency, so they'll be able to fill that void. I'm confident in that. I'm just hoping that with Jalen Hurts, and I want the kid to succeed, but from what we saw last year in inconsistencies, he needs to prove it to the fan base. He needs to prove it to all of us that he can take his game to the next level and be that quarterback, whether he does or not. I just don't want the Philadelphia Eagles to continue to give a pass at the quarterback position because we have a good quarterback. The Philadelphia fans want a great quarterback. We haven't had a great quarterback since Donovan McNabb. Look, we had Vic. He had an MVP type of season, but that was short-lived. Look, Nick Foles, he had a miracle run in that Super Bowl run, and I give credit to Nick Foles, and I love him for bringing that Super Bowl to the city of Philadelphia, but he is what he was. He was a journeyman NFL quarterback, and you see what he has done since he left the city of Philadelphia. He is not a great quarterback in the NFL. Kevin Cobb, Sam Bradford, Carson Wentz, who we had hope for, which burst up in flames. Yeah. Philadelphia wants a great quarterback, especially the fact that that's really the only position that this team really needs to take this team to the next level. We're finally transitioning to that Super Bowl run or that Super Bowl contending team. They got the pieces in place. They're building that defense. They got the pieces in place on offense. We need the quarterback, and Jalen Hurts needs to prove it to all of us that he can make that leap and be that quarterback for us before we give him any type of deal.
Yeah, and you look at the draft this year. They're drafting players that are going to be taking over for aging stars, if you want to say. Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox. I know they don't play the exact same position in terms of Jordan will maybe play a more nose tackle than, regular defensive tackle or the end position or, certain things like that. But still, it's a guy that's going to be stepping in. A guy like Cam Jurgens stepping in, playing behind one of the best centers in Eagles history, Jason Kelsey. So you got that, and then getting Nakobe Dean, finally getting a linebacker with some stature to be able to hopefully take that group to the next level. There's a lot of pieces, like you said, pieces being put in place that the window is starting to open in terms of being able to be that contender. It's just they have to fulfill the role of hopefully getting that quarterback to be able to take them to that place.
Exactly. And look, I just can't stand this organization. And look, I'm not trying to criticize Howie because over the last 2 years, he has turned this disaster with the cap, the disaster with the roster, and he has made it better. Well, You look at the last 2 drafts. You look at this past year's free agency. You look at some of the trades they're able to make. They're making moves, and look, I give Howie credit for that. This is an organization and a front office that can never admit when they're wrong. You still look at Jalen Reagor on the team. You have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside still on the team. And I get why Chris brought up Alshon Jeffrey because they were rewarding him and hoping that he would continue that success. But he was a guy coming off injuries as well and an aging wide receiver that you gave that money that you put in the cap hell. So, look, this is a team front office that has a history of never can admit when they're wrong. I still want them to keep on continuing to give Jalen Hurts chances and wasting the prime of this young talent's careers. And then we have to continue the cycle, continue recycling until we finally get it right. Because look, it's been 4 years since we won that Super Bowl. I don't want to wait another 4, 5, 10 years for another Super Bowl. I want us to win one now. And look, I agree with you. The window is opening, but it can close just as quickly as it's opening. And right now, it is wide open. The fact that the NFC East is a complete dumpster fire right now. You have Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, who can't stay healthy either with the Giants. You have Carson Wentz now with the Washington Commanders, which we'll see twice a year, which who knows? He might be the Carson from the MVP type of season. You look at the Cowboys, who everyone always overhypes. And, they made some moves, but they also lost a lot of pieces. They lost Amari Cooper. They lost Did they lose Randy Gregory? They lost a couple of pieces on that defense, which, of course, the Cowboys fans are going to say.
Collins, Connor Williams, they have some offensive linemen.
They're washed up, or the next guy up is better. Let's wait and see what happens first before you start anointing the Dallas Cowboys as Super Bowl champions once again, Cowboys fans. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to let our teams do the talking and the talking on the field. But look, the NFC is wide open. The fact that we were able to be a wild card team last year with a subpar quarterback play and a roster that really wasn't complete, it's a little bit promising. And now it's just hopefully that this team can stay healthy. That's the key to the success of the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022 is not just Jalen Hurts, but it's staying healthy, because that offensive line, yeah, it's probably one of the best built offensive lines in all of football right now, but they easily, with an injury or two, can be demolished. And that ruins the success of Jalen Hurts, because he needs protection up front, because he's a guy that when under pressure has too often just darts off and runs, which he could be a dynamic player, but he's putting his body on the line and he's risking injury further. And no offense to Peanut, I have no faith in Gardner Minshew to lead this offense or lead this Eagles team to any type of deep playoff run. He is not Nick Foles 2.0.
Listen, you could tell Peanut this. If Gardner Minshew has to come in and lead the team, it's like wiping yourself with used toilet paper, just a shitty situation. Yep. So you just don't want to have that. And I just think it's fun. This offseason has been very fun. Last offseason was the whole Carson Wentz debacle and everything, all these reports coming out and everything. This offseason has been fun. The acquisitions they made. Like I said, I've likened it back to like 2004 when they got Javon Curse and Terrell Owens, and it was different situation because the team was a winner previous years. But I mean, like the hype was there, and I don't know. It's going to be fun. Training camp's only 2 weeks away. We're gonna next couple of weeks we'll start kind of talking a little bit about training camp, what we're kind of looking forward to, some certain things we have in store, some fun stuff that we have in store. We have a ton of fun shows on the network. Are you guys doing your Birds, Beers, and BS this week?
Depends what Pino wants to do. But yeah, we have Birds, Beers, and BS on the YouTube channel. So make sure, again, you're following, liking, subscribing, hitting that thumbs up button, hitting that notification button for all our shows on our YouTube channel, AAT Sports Network. Make sure you check out AATSportsNetwork.com. You can find all the links there as well. Of course, we also have Chips and Drip. Right now, there is a Philadelphia Union soccer game. So, again, make sure you're following one of our beat reporters, Mike Barrera, and Dave Miller for their content and for their insight on the Philadelphia Union. They do their show across the pitch, usually Fridays or Saturdays, so make sure to check them out as well. And then I assume Burning Bridge is going to be starting up again soon with football season?
Yeah, we'll be starting that soon. I got to talk with Jeremy, get that all set up. Maybe try and get a couple more before the season starts episodes, but definitely that'll be starting back up as well. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
And look, if you're an inspiring podcaster or a writer, or a guy that loves Philadelphia sports, NFL, any sport whatsoever, if you're interested in doing what we're doing, you want a platform to give your voice, hit one of us up. We're always looking for podcasters. You want to start your own show on the network. If you want to write about a certain team or a sport, give us a heads up. We'll get you all started. Look, we're always looking for more contributors to the network. We want this to be bigger, better. We want great content, and we want this to be successful, and we want to make you successful. So if you're anyone interested, hit one of us up. Hit up the AT Sports Twitter or the AATBirds Twitter, and we'll tell you how you can get started.
Yeah, and some sponsors that we have here: Statement Games, fun-free twist on fantasy sports. Link is in the bio. Again, AATSportsNetwork.com/shop. We got some designs, some fun designs on there. Take a look at that. Any design that you'd like to see, just shoot us a message and we can see.
As long as it's not copyrighted.
As long as it's not copyrighted, we can try and make it happen for you. Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant located off the Iroquois Trail in Old Town Shopping Center in Allentown. Visit them today, www.vinnyspizzapa.com.
And they have game day specials. They have tons of deals. And look, if you're in the Lehigh Valley, make sure to check them out. Take the family out. It's not just for delivery. They're available for delivery or takeout, but they also have in-house seating. So if you want to get out, go out and support a local restaurant. Make sure to check out Vinny's Pizza. Tell Caesar and the crew over there that we sent you over. And also, Stuff to the Grills, located off the Iroquois Trail as well in the Old Town Shopping Center
in Allentown, www.stufftothegrills.com. And I did see that they are renovating, I believe.
They are renovating. They should be reopening for in-house business very soon. So make sure to follow their Facebook page at Stuff to the Grills, or check out their website, stufftothegrills.com. They are currently still open for catering orders, and they're revamping their whole new menu. I saw some of the new product they're having. The mozzarella cheese triangles. They're still having the great specials. They still have their traditional sandwiches where you can add like the Pittsburgh style of coleslaw and French fries on any sandwich they have. So again, make sure to check them out, stufftothegrills.com, and follow them on Facebook as well, Stuff to the Grills. They are located in the Iroquois, off Iroquois Trail in the Old Town Shopping Center, which is considered Allentown, but it's on the outskirts. So make sure to check them out.
Absolutely. And again, I am joined by Jeff Warner at Jeff Warner NFL.
Glad to be back for at least 1 week. Look, a lot of Eagles talk. I'll say the season's going to be fun. So, again, make sure to tell your friends. Hit the follow, like, subscribe to all our social media platforms. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. Check out the website. Spread the word. Look, right now, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. So send it to a friend. You have a chance by doing that. Anyone that subscribes, one person out of 1,000, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, has a chance to win a Brian Dawkins signed 16x20 photo. That is coming from my personal collection. So look, make sure to spread it out. Just text it to a friend, send it to a person on Facebook, share it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media platforms you're on. Anyone that's a football fan, sports fan, Eagles fan, whoever might be interested in our platform. We're trying to get bigger. We're trying to spread the word out, and we just want to entertain you. So we want to entertain the fans and the listeners of our platform, of our network. We appreciate everyone that supports us. We do this for fun, but we want to entertain you, and by entertaining you and making this better, we need some help. So again, make sure you're hitting the YouTube on our YouTube channel and subscribing.
Yeah, and we do have some news that we will be dropping shortly. Some pretty fun, exciting, pretty big news. So definitely if you want to hit the notifications so you don't miss it. We will be posting that shortly. So
make sure you save Sunday, August 21st open on your calendar. You'll know why in a couple days, but again, block out August 21st, and there's gonna be a little fun in downtown Allentown with the AAT Sports Network crew.
Exactly. Jeff said it best. And with that, we always like to give a very happy and fun Go Birds.